Hello, I'm Steph from iDriver Classic, and today I'm showing you the Singer 9 Roadster. This example is from the late 1940s. If you know much about these, you'll know of course that they were made for 2 years before the Second World War, 39 and I guess kind of in the war as well, 1940, but they came back in 1946. They were so very loved. They were made by one of Britain's largest manufacturers. I believe at the time of this being sold, Singer were number 4. They were behind Austin, Morris and was it Ford? I can't remember. Anyway, they were number 4. And so therefore this Singer 9 Roadster went all over the world. Over 90%, I believe, were exported worldwide. So if you're watching in Australia or America or one of the ex-British colonies, these may look very familiar to you because so many of them went to all corners of the globe. Now this is an exceptional vehicle. It's had a few tasteful upgrades and modifications made, which I'll show you in today's video and explain where they've come from and the engineering geniuses that have gone into making sure this vehicle is on the road today. If you've never watched one of these videos, we're going to get right into all the nooks and crannies with this. We'll have a look around the outside, we look at the dash, we look at the locker. If you're wondering why I'm calling it a locker, that's because it wasn't called a boot yet. So if you look at any of the literature, it's called a locker in all the books. And then we take it out for a test drive. We do have a slightly juicier engine in this than what it was sold with. However, all the fun is still very much there. This is one of the most beautiful vehicles that we have taken out in quite some time, and I'm certain that you're going to love it. So buckle up with me, even though we don't have any seatbelts today. We are off to have a look at the Singer 9 Roadster. The 30s was a great time for Singer because in their heyday, largely driven by the success of the junior model, they were number 3 in Britain's manufacturing car industry, although by the time it gets to this car, they are number 4, as I mentioned earlier. The quality, if you're wondering, was comparable to Rover and Wolseley, and the thoughtful nature to vehicle design meant their cars were well received by the buying public and press alike. Known for quality family saloons and daring sporting vehicles, Singer felt there was a gap for a sporting roadster, and so with that they took what they already had into the workshop, and throughout 1937 and 1938 they set about using the old Le Mans Sport scuttle and windscreen assemblies and a tuned up Bantam engine, and they also took the chassis off the Bantam too, and created the 9 Roadster. The car needed to be low weight to achieve the performance, and this was done by adding a coach built ash framed aluminium body which was lighter than a steel counterpart. The Roadster then comes to market in January 1939 and is priced at £169, and it is sold with the strapline, the best little roadster of our time, which actually wasn't a bad shout because Practical Motorist, Autocar and the Motor Magazine all sung the praises of the car, talking about the lively performance, the good looks and the excellence. Now, really interestingly, the market for the car was a new one. It was aimed at a middle-class family man who'd previously loved his sports car or had lusted after one, but couldn't commit to one because his family commitments of children meant that he needed extra space for them. And this is why there are 2 seats in the back, essentially making this a 2+2, although it is a little bit of a squeeze for fully grown adults, and by the way, it is doable. It is perfect for popping a few children in the back. They're not going to feel the same level of squish. The car was economical, meaning it could be a justified purchase, and yet it had all the hallmarks of a sports car, even right down to the styling cues taken from the mid-30s long-tail Le Mans in Singer's own range. The fold-down windscreen, the humped scuttle and the cutaway doors added to that sporting finesse of the finished car. In short, Singer were right on target for the vision and what this growing niche market sector really wanted. Some reviews put the top speed at 65 miles per hour, and others wager that you could hit 75 if you put your mind to it and foot firmly into the floor, which was pretty good going in a pre-motorway era where many popular cars were struggling to top 40 unless they were absolutely thrashed. The car's production ceased in 1940, not due to lack of interest or poor sales, purely due to the war and factories and manufacturers being asked to chip in on the war effort. And it was then revived in 1946, which is really interesting because if you look at a lot of car manufacturers, they kind of ditch what they do pre-war and they come out after the war all singing and dancing with something completely new. However, the cost does jump enormously because originally it was £169 and pre-sales tax it's now £335, so it's quite a jump. However, it was the perfect model for the company to meet the government's new initiative, which was known as the export or die post-war policy. And the idea is that manufacturers had to sell the vast majority of what they made abroad to help rebuild Britain after the war. And around 90% of these were exported abroad, mainly to America and Australia. Now, America had a big sporting market, and it sold really well over there. That was the predominant market. Now, as you'll notice when we look around, and you've probably already spotted, this car has received some modifications to make it more usable in today's world, and also because parts of the original engine are quite scarce, especially when you're trying to use it all the time. But initially this would have been fitted with the 1074cc engine, which was already in Singer's stable, and a single SU carb. The transmission would have been a 3-speed with synchro on the top 2 gears. It is still rod brakes on this, and the steering is Berman-Werman nut. Now, I'm quite used to that because obviously I drive a standard. Now, as I said, there have been modifications and there are a few slight bits and pieces, but one of the big ones is that the car now sports engine and gearbox from an Austin Healey Sprite. So that's a 1098 A series engine, and if you're wondering if a car got scrapped to make that happen, not so. The Austin Healey Sprite that this came out of was way too rotten to be saved, and everything was going to be going to scrap. So at least something good has come of that car going to the scrapyard, and the engine and gearbox are now in this. The new engine and gearbox, well, the new engine gives 59 brake horsepower, and from experience of driving A series for many years, you'll be able to get over 70 miles per hour if you don't hold yourself back. The Roadster was made for a number of years under various iterations, and production ceased in 1955 when the SM Roadster was discontinued. Coming inside, it is such a treat because, as you've probably guessed already from having a look under the bonnet and spotting those indicators at the rear, it has received a few canny upgrades, including the interior. And I was talking to the owner about this, and I said, what led you to do that? And he was just nonchalantly walking me through this restoration of the vehicle and talking about all the work he'd done, and he said, oh yeah, there was a rat's nest over there, and I thought, that's where I would have tapped out. I don't think I would have had the guts to carry on. But he has valiantly pushed on and done such a marvellous job of retrimming these seats, and in my opinion bringing the car forward in a really thoughtful way, because a lot of people look at cars of this era and they panic and they say, oh, it's going to be too slow, it's not going to be able to keep up with everything, and things can just feel a little bit antiquated for the modern driver. However, the things that have been done inside here seem to have been done very thoughtfully, including this dash. Now, you're going to look at this dash if you've ever been in a Singer 9 Roadster and say to me, Steph, that looks really different to the last dash I saw. And you are correct, because a lot of things have been done, but in my opinion, done very thoughtfully. So first of all, running from left to right, as we always do, you have got the glove box, and inside you've got the book of the Singer, and we've got the Singer 9 horsepower Roadster instruction book and repair manual. Very helpful. I know that repair manual is for a slightly older vehicle, but a lot of the basics stay the same, so it's helpful to have if you're stuck in a bit of a jam. Coming over from there, you've got a map light, and into the centre here, and this is where some of the ingenuity starts coming into play. This has been made by the owner, and he's had to file bits, he's had to tweak bits to get it to fit, and it looks smashing. And I love the little Singer detail in the middle there. So you've got your amp meter, you've got your water temperature, you've got your fuel gauge, and you've got your oil pressure gauge. Coming into the centre, we keep that beige fascia with the little Singer badging all together, and you've got a clock into the centre there. Coming down, you come into a choke and your push start, so clearly some things never change. And then we come over to the speedo. Now this runs all the way up to 90, but as I said at the start of the video, this would have originally only been hitting around 65. Now I'm going to tell you a very interesting story that you would not know about this car if you just passed it at a show, is that this speedo and all the bits in between and behind it have been built from the innards of a Morris minor speedo, and apparently it runs exactly to the mile, and it is so precise. Now, I felt like saying, my Morris Minor isn't, tell me your secrets. So that is great, and it's lovely to see how people bring these vehicles forward in a thoughtful way that really doesn't impede the look of the car. I think it looks very natural in the way it is, and it's great because it's functioning as well and it's being used so regularly. Coming over, we have another map light, we've got the RPM, we've got your light switches, so you've got side and head over there, and you've just got your switch to do that with. So again, that's just your original Bakelite switch on there. Coming over from there, you've got your voltmeter, and you've got a couple of little buttons here, so these just warn, again, your indicators are on and various other things. And now this is one of my favourite features on this car. This is a Blue Mills Brooklyn steering wheel. Now, if you've ever been in a later Singer 9 Roadster, you're going to say to me, Steph, weren't they a 3-spoke? They were indeed, but this one has been changed over. I don't think it takes away from anything in the car, and it is such a lovely bit of kit. I have never seen a Blue Mills steering wheel, and it is lovely. There's also indicators down here, because you'll have noticed that they're on the back. Now, it is worth mentioning that these work independently of the semaphores. So if you see me pop the semaphores on, you'll know that the indicators aren't on, and vice versa. There's also 4 switches down here, which for the life of me, I cannot remember. So I'm going to use this very handy cheat sheet that has been made for me. We have got map, panel, flash, and dip. So those are all there. And as you can see, it's all been cleverly laid out for me. I managed to remember all the rest of it. There's a couple of other bits which I'd like to draw your attention to, which I think really add something to the car. You've got these door pockets down here that have got that wood capping finishing on the back, so it just again keeps that wood vibe going through the car. And then coming down into this center console area here, so you've got the Singer gear knob, and then you've got this area just down here which you could put all sorts of things in, whether there's originals, cassette tapes, CDs, whatever you fancy, because of course we do have a modern headset there as well. Now, what I like about this is that if you were a purist and you purchased this car and you didn't want that on anymore, you can simply unbolt it and it's gone, and there are no traces of it whatsoever. So again, thoughtfully put in, and that's one of the main threads that you feel as you jump inside this car, is everything has been done really thoughtfully, even though it has been moved forward to quite some extent. Now, as we were looking around, I spoke to you about how things had been changed, and I told you that the original overhead cam engine had been replaced with the engine for, I think was it in Austin Healey, but it's a 1098 anyway, and it's got the matching gearbox as well. Now, the original gearbox was a 3-speed with synchro on the upper 2 gears, but again, the owner was almost apologetic when he said to me, oh, I've changed it, and he started giving me all the reasons. But for me, it's just a joy to see this vehicle out on the road. I don't know what your thoughts are. And also, apparently the scarcity of parts is horrendous for some of these old engines, which means that what happens is that if something goes wrong, you can be weeks or months hunting for a bit, whereas if you go for a more commonplace engine, it doesn't really detract from the overall look of the car. It makes it more usable, you can get the parts on next day delivery, and it means that the vehicle can be out, it can be seen, it can be used and enjoyed so much more. And remember, the more we take out our vehicles, the more people connect with them, and the more it sparks joy and interest from other generations. So it's 2 thumbs up from me. Now, we're going to get it started up. It is of course not going to sound as it would have, however, I still think we're going to get a good note, so let's have a listen. Remember, it's push start on this. I think that still sounds pretty healthy. Let's shoot it from the back and hear what she sounds like. Right, let's go on an adventure. In case anybody didn't hear that out of shot, they did actually just compliment us on the car. and I was a little bit naughty because I didn't tell them it wasn't mine. But you can't blame me.
Oh, it's lovely and bouncy.
Up into fourth gear. Now as we cruise along, this is a lovely, lovely car to drive. I mean, we do have all the perfect ingredients: a well-restored vehicle, a sunny day, some country roads, really everything you need to get the best out of the vehicle. Now I am going to put my foot down slightly, ruining my hair in the process, no doubt. With this being on rod brakes in a vehicle that I don't know and on roads that I don't know, I'm certainly not going to be thrashing the old dear, but she's easy enough to drive. Now I remember the turning circle when I was reading about these, I think it was quite pronounced. I think it's about 34 foot, and as you come around these corners you'll be able to see that the steering is somewhat vague. I was talking to you about that. It's the Urban, I think, steering box on this, if I remember correctly. But it is so much fun. So much fun despite that vague steering. Now of course with that 1098 being under the bonnet, it certainly doesn't feel like we're putting the car under any undue pressure. But it is also worth noting that the engine is still being running to some extent. So I have been asked not to take on my 50 miles an hour today, which is fine by me because I don't know these roads and I'm certainly not about to get caught by a speed camera. Now as we come on down, we'll come down into third gear. It does change nicely through that box. It is a nice example of one of these gearboxes. And you know what? It's right, it does make it more useful, and it does make it one of those vehicles that you can get cars for quite easily. Now the nice thing about buying into a Singer is that despite the fact that many people think of sewing machines when they think of Singers, they still have an enormous amount of love in the classic car community. Because remember, at one point, this was Britain's third most popular car manufacturer, sitting behind Morris and Austin. And I think it dropped down into fourth place the year after it made third. But it still held its own in those top brand manufacturers. And they're still remembered very fondly today. And many, many people have these. The support from the club is wonderful, really wonderful. We talked about this when we took the other Singer out. And if you ever have one of these and you have a problem, you know that you can ring the club and they'll help you, and they will really get you going back on the road again. Which again, it makes it only one of these cars, despite them being a little bit older than many of the classics people are going for over 16 and 17, it still makes it very much an attractive customer. Now I am going to pick this up. It is quite noisy in here, so hopefully you'll still be able to hear me. But my goodness, what fun we are having. It really does make you think. You feel the flow for that I can take this out. It's brilliant. And I can totally see it here as well, because I don't know if you thought, but we have obviously got back seats in this. It is almost a bit of a 2+2. And for me, I think it is marvellous because there is enough room for either a slight adult or children to sit in the back, which again makes it a really useful car. And you can see why so many people are wanting one of these. They are such a nice fit for kids. And I'm trying to think what else I can tell you. I mean, as you can probably see, the steering is a bit wayward. But look, we're taking out a vehicle that was designed before the 7th World War. I wouldn't expect it to have the precise steering of a brand new car, or something even that was coming out at the end of the 40s. And really, the joy from these is in that driving experience, the open road, and not being hemmed in by a roof and all the bits around us.
It has been a pleasure taking this out today, and I hope you've enjoyed watching it just as much as I have done.